The winter morning cracked open like a wound, sharp and unforgiving, as Margaret Hale stood outside a pawnshop in a small Ohio town, clutching an empty purse and a heavier heart. Hunger had a sound that day, a low ache that echoed through her chest, louder than the traffic, louder than pride. What she was about to give up was the last piece of her past, the final proof that love had once wrapped its arms around her life and promised it would never let go. Yet survival does not wait for sentiment, and desperation has a way of silencing memories. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and quiet miracles that arrive when hope feels gone, take a moment right now to like this video, share it with someone who needs faith restored, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps keep stories like this alive. Margaret had lived her whole life in the United States, moving from one modest place to another, following work that never stayed and dreams that slowly thinned. After her husband Thomas passed from a sudden illness, the world seemed to collapse inward. Medical bills drained what little savings they had, and the rent on her aging apartment in Ohio fell behind. She cleaned offices at night and stocked shelves at dawn, but when winter cut her hours, hunger arrived like an uninvited guest. The only thing she had left of Thomas was a small antique locket, dull with age, containing a faded photograph and a pressed wildflower. It was not valuable in money, but it held the weight of a lifetime. Selling it felt like erasing him, but hunger left no room for hesitation. Inside the pawn shop, fluorescent lights hummed above dusty glass cases. Margaret's hands trembled as she placed the locket on the counter, her breath shallow, her thoughts spiraling. The owner examined it briefly and offered an amount barely enough for groceries. She accepted without protest, because dignity does not fill an empty stomach. As she turned to leave, she noticed a man standing near the back of the shop, tall, composed, his presence oddly calm in a place of transactions and loss. His name was Richard Coleman, though she did not know it then. He was a billionaire known across the country for his investments and his distance from ordinary life, visiting town quietly to close a property deal. Richard had seen countless objects pass through his hands in his life, but something about the locket drew his attention. It was not the metal or the age, but the way Margaret let go of it, as if part of her had been torn away. He watched her walk out into the cold, shoulders hunched, coat too thin for the weather. When he asked to see the locket, the shop owner handed it over casually. Inside, Richard noticed the photograph and the fragile wildflower, carefully preserved. What stunned him was the handwriting etched faintly inside, a simple message of enduring love, written decades ago. It reminded him of a promise he once broke, a life he had chosen not to live. Margaret used the money to buy bread, soup, and a small bag of rice, stretching it carefully over days. She ate slowly, as if to make the food last longer, and tried not to think about the empty space where the locket used to rest against her skin. Nights were the hardest, when silence pressed in and memories grew louder. She prayed quietly, not for miracles, but for strength to keep going one more day. Meanwhile, Richard could not shake the image of her face or the weight of that small object. Wealth had insulated him from hunger, but not from regret. He began asking questions, learning about Margaret's life, her losses, and her quiet resilience. A week later, Margaret was called into an office building she cleaned, told there was a mistake in scheduling. Confused and exhausted, she waited in a conference room that smelled of polished wood and coffee. Richard entered calmly, carrying a small box. He explained, not with grand gestures but with sincerity, that he had bought the locket and wanted to return it. What he saw in her was not weakness, but courage, a willingness to sacrifice everything for survival without bitterness. He offered more than the locket. He arranged stable work, paid her overdue rent, and set up a small fund to ensure she would never have to choose between hunger and memory again. Just before the ending, please leave a comment below telling us what part of this story moved you the most or reminded you of someone you know. Margaret's life did not transform overnight into something extravagant, but it became something safe. She moved into a warmer apartment, found steady work, and began volunteering at a local food pantry, helping others who stood where she once had. The locket returned to its place near her heart, heavier now with gratitude. Richard walked away changed as well, reminded that real value is often hidden in the quiet sacrifices of ordinary people. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share it, and engage with the channel, because stories of compassion deserve to travel far beyond the screen, carrying hope to those who need it most.